Kris Abdelmessih is an intentional investor right here on Epsilon Theory YouTube. Oh my God, we got stories about growing up in New Jersey. We got stories about the friend 4 years older and all the cool wisdom that he put on him. And the buddy down the street, hopping buses, going surfing, coming back, playing guitars. You might know about the market making, the trading, how he's basically covered every single pit that you can possibly imagine, except for one. You have to listen to the end to get to that story. But this guy has been everywhere. I bet you don't know all the ways that lined up to get him to the Moontower. Man, he is today. Jack Forehand, roll some clips.
I grew up most of my life wanting to be a doctor because you're an immigrant's kid and that's the choice, right? It's like, you got to be a doctor one day. And he pulls over the Wall Street Journal and he shows me the stock tables. And he goes, don't be a doctor. This is where the money is. Wall Street. And I don't know what the heck Wall Street is to decide. But my dad, he went bankrupt on the car business. Basically, the crash of 87 wiped him out. Like, he had no more clients, couldn't get any more business. She goes, you're going to be rich no matter what happens. Which is, if you're growing up the way I grew up, like, this is the most manipulative comment you could ever possibly make, right? Then I'm working for Dick Emmett, who ends up becoming the CEO of Jane Street, I believe. And then, like, people that have become wildly successful in like more private things in trading, that's like all the people I'm learning from my first year. When you're 21 years old, you are all human capital and no financial capital at that age. You want to compound your human capital, you go find the best people you can learn from and you latch onto that and you just go. My mom is a rogue and she's a hard-headed lady and she's tough as nails, and she always told us that you are loved and you really felt it and you should not worry about what other people think. She just constantly drove this message into my mind. Do not care what other people think. COVID is an amazing year if you trade options. Before COVID, I started to get a little bit of an inkling that I don't know if I want to do this my whole life. I'll probably regret wondering if I could like build a life in another way versus just feeling like I was sentenced to this one for another 10 years. I work harder now than I did at the hedge fund, which I think people would think sounds crazy because I work way harder for way less money.
Welcome to The Intentional Investor with Matt Zeigler, where he and his guests explore the intersection of investing and life, portfolio, and purpose. Nothing in this podcast is investment advice. Nothing in this podcast is advising you to buy or sell any security or to do anything with your money. Seriously. You should only act on investment advice from someone you know and who knows your unique situation. We are not that person. Matt Zeigler is a managing director at Sunpoint Investments, and the opinions expressed on this show do not necessarily reflect the opinions of Sunpoint Investments or of Second Foundation Partners. Securities discussed in the podcast may be holdings of Sunpoint Investments.
You are watching The Intentional Investor right here on Epsilon Theory YouTube. I'm Matt Zeigler, and this guest, this backstory, we have to get this on the record because pieces of it are out there, but I need the whole thing. Now, if you want to understand him, I'm starting musically. I've got some tapes for you. The first tape to understanding this man, make no mistake if you're looking at that shirt, the first tape to understand this man is Forever Your Girl by Paula Abdul. And who needs a guitar when you got lines like, hey baby, you gotta remember I'm forever your girl, baby forever and ever and ever, you know I am. And you kind of got to whisper that last bit. It's really sweet, but we got Paula in the boombox. Let's keep going. We're going to skip ahead. We're not going to let him off the hook all the way to GNR, but I am jumping to Alice in Chains, and I'm jumping to Alice in Chains Unplugged. I don't want you just listening to the songs on this to understand him. I want him as the Sludge Factory bit, and I'm cheating on the intro. Do you remember Sludge Factory and Alice in Chains Unplugged? Do you know the moment I'm talking about?
Yes.
There's this wonderful bit where they start the song and Lane screws up and he drops a big loud F-bomb and an all right. And this is what I love about this. Jerry's behind him. And he's assuring him he's the ultimate best friend. And he's telling the audience, it's like, it's a do-over. It's a do-over. You guys get to hear more music. He's telling the audience everything's going to be fine. And then somebody in the audience yells like, hey, quit fucking this up. And that moment of pressure is very, very real. And Jerry immediately like takes the whole thing down again. He's like, hey, what are you guys looking at, man? And he's now joking with the audience. And somebody's like, well, hey. And then Jerry's like, no, you quit looking at us. And there's this tense back and forth. But Jerry keeps it small until Lane picks that head up with that beautiful smile of his. And it's just, he's like, what's my motivation here? He goes, fear acting.
Mm-hmm.
And this guest embodies that, not just the music, but the conversation with the audience that comes between the songs. And the last piece, I have to get one more thing in there, and that's Wu-Tang, the mystery of chess boxing, where he actually thinks Master Killer's verse is the best. And you really made me think about this when you talked about this. I had to go back and I had to look at that because I could hear homicide's illegal and death is the penalty in my mind. But I hadn't really thought about what justifies the homicide when he dies. In his own iniquity, it's the master of the mantis rapture coming at you. We have an APB on an MC killer. Looks like the work of a master. And that's, yeah, I don't know why. I never would have picked Master Kill out of the mix, but you have a thing for picking these things out. So to the good people of the audience, I've gone on long enough. It's the Paula Abdul cassette of New Jersey youths, the Alice in Chains Unplugged of financial market making, and the Master Killer of Moontowers, Kris Abdelmessih. Welcome to the Intentional Investor.
Thank you very much, Matt. I was obviously very looking forward to what you were going to say there, and we were on a pod together, and you did a great intro there, and I was like, is he going to top it? And this was just like real personal. It's cool.
Oh, hey,
cool. Thank you.
We got to get personal, and you did have the Paul Abdul cassette. Was that tape number one for you?
I did.
Close?
It was so. The story on that is actually wasn't mine. It was my mom's. There was two cassettes actually. It was
True Blue Madonna, right?
True Blue Madonna. Yeah, by the way, I might have written about that one time ever. So you really like, I'm a little scared now. But yeah, it was the Paul Abdul and True Blue Madonna were the two cassettes that we had in one of those like old Kenwood stereos in like the middle of the 80s. And but the first tapes that I bought were it was on the same day. It was this one, or not this one actually. This is Use Your Illusions. It was Appetite and GNR Lies.
Yeah, which you can't go wrong with that. You're in the right ballpark. All right, we're jumping straight to this. This is my first question. Then we're gonna go way back in time.
Okay.
Does this book mean anything to you?
Yeah.
What does this book mean to you? This is Getting the Best of It by David Sklansky. Fun to say your last name.
It's
you got a copy right there. Come on.
I do have a copy here
almost
somewhere.
like the shelf.
It's in the room, but so that book was that goes back to when I was in college, and I was at the career fair going to the booths, and I ended up getting interviewed by SIG, who nobody knew who the heck they were in 2000 or 1999 really, when I was a senior. And I went back. They did one of these interviews where they ask you a bunch of probability questions, and I didn't really do that great on the questions. But I liked the interviewer. He seemed to like me, even though I couldn't get things right. And at the end of the interview, I told him, and I had never really been exposed to these things before, like these kind of questions or anything like that. So I asked him, how do I get better at stuff like this? Because I like this. This is neat. And he told me, go get that book and read the first chapter, or there's a chapter called like Probability or Edge or something. It's right in the beginning. And he goes, just read that chapter. And sure enough, they reach out for a second round interview over the phone. This is over my winter break of senior year of college. So I'm back in New Jersey. And they gave me a phone interview, and all the questions come pretty much, like 2 out of the 3 questions, whatever, come straight out of the first chapter. So he gave me the answer key. So I remember thinking like, oh, this guy, like, he wants me to get hired. So that book. I recommend that book to read the first chapter to other people. It was recommended to me. It does a great job of sort of like explaining the concept of edge. But it was. I think the wider story there was like, if you show people you're interested in something, they might help you along.
They might actually want you to help. Like, what a novel concept. And it's an aptitude test in its own way, right? It's like, do you have the aptitude to go find this book and try this and then respond?
Yeah. I think it's what's interesting is like, I do have opinions on this, like, now as times have changed. Like, back then, back then, like being a trader was like especially like an options trader on a trading floor it's certainly not a high status thing to do and mostly unknown. And so you didn't have a whole bunch of people trying to get into the business because of that. It hadn't went through like this, that steep part of its growth curve as a business in general. So it was still like a backwater of misfits. So because it wasn't high status, it probably meant something to them that the person sitting in front of you actually expressed interest in wanting to do this. And that interest was probably genuine because it wasn't high status. Today, I don't think that technique would work. Be like, oh, I got my questions wrong. Can you please tell me what I could read? Because they would be like, yeah, this is everything about how this works is on the internet now. And everything's really well picked over. And literally, we only care if you are the top student from Princeton at math. So it wouldn't work today. But if you're going into another field that's kind of low status at the time, you just love it. You probably want to, wear that badge on you that you love this thing.
Truer words have rarely been spoken. And the looking at the status outward signaling of the career path or whatever in advance, thinking about that as an actual edge and what information can be gleaned by knowing this is a low status job versus understanding if it's a high status job, what you have to bring to the table to even get in through the door, right? Like the secret knock and handshake to be like, oh, I have the right pedigree to be in this conversation. That's fascinating. All right, take me all the way back. The very, very high status upbringing. Does it start in Brooklyn? Is this where young baby Kris meets the world?
Yeah, I was so my family came to my family's from Cairo. My mother and my father are both from Cairo, but they didn't meet in Cairo. They met in New York, but my parents immigrated or all of my mom's family, like they immigrated like 1972 to and they landed in Brooklyn. And then it was kind of, they land in Brooklyn, and it's like one of these stories where it's like my grandfather arrives first, then like brings the rest of the family like six to 12 months later kind of thing. And I'm born in 78 in Brooklyn. I'm going to mention this only because I've met many, many people that have been born in the same hospital. I was born in the Methodist Hospital on 7th Avenue in Park Slope, which is a baby factory. Like I've just met tons of people in my life that have been born in that hospital. So I'll just mention it. But I was born there, but until I was like 4 or 5 years old, I lived in Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn. And then I was not that far from Coney Island. For people that aren't from New York, who might have heard of Coney Island. And then kind of like from there, it was about like 4 or 5. And then my sister was born, like we're 4 years apart. My sister was born in Brooklyn as well. And then we moved out to the suburbs to a town called Haslet. And the way they found that was my father. So my father is kind of a cliche because, Middle Eastern family, and my dad drove a cab. And he drove a cab for a while, and there was this rash in the 70s of a cab drivers getting murdered. And yeah, so they got kind of scared. I mean, it's an irrational feel. What's the chances, but like whatever. They were
It's a good thing to be scared of.
Yeah, it's good to be scared of, right?
Yeah.
So he wanted to get out of driving the yellow cab, and he ends up doing like the livery car service, like basically driving a black car for people. And he ends up so because you're doing that, you're now doing like interstate in New York. So you're going he was driving all around New York, New Jersey, even in Pennsylvania and Connecticut. So he's driving in New Jersey one time, and he dropped off a client somewhere near Haslet, New Jersey, which is an hour outside New York City. And he kind of drove around there, and he came back and he told my mom, like, hey, there's this nice place. It looks like a nice, pleasant place where people would have a white picket fence or something. And that that's how we ended up moving out there.
Is mom working at this point already too, or is she?
Yeah. My mom is she worked in banking pretty much her whole career. So it's sort of like back office ops kind of stuff for her whole career. So she was working, so my mom was a very academic person. Like she was like really good in school, and like she says she got an 800 on her math SAT. I don't know if that's true. And she was in the country for like a month or whatever. And she was trying to be a doctor, but then, it was like life kind of happens. She ends up dropping out of college, has me, and, it's time to go you just got to get to work. So she ends up getting into like probably doing sorting mail or something in a bank. And then she just basically, no college education, is like, she's a very classic immigrant story from that time of just like total grinder. And she just works in banking her whole career. Like I said, all in ops, but like she is working at that time and she's working pretty hard. Actually, there's a story of like, so they used to leave, so we lived when I was in Brooklyn, we were in a brownstone, like a family up top and a family down below. She's got my mom has 3 siblings, and then her mother and father lived above us in like a bigger unit, and we lived in a small unit down underneath. And she's the oldest, the first person that got married, had a family. So we live downstairs, grandma and everybody lives upstairs. But the ones that are upstairs, like they're like in high school. The kids are in high school. Her siblings, some of them, or college. And then her mom is a seamstress, so she's working. Her dad worked in a bank. So they would just leave me. Apparently, there was like an hour gap where there was no coverage. So I'm like a baby in a crib. And there was an hour gap every day where there was nobody around, nobody in the building. And so I was
just baby Kris in the
just
crib, like
that was 1978. Yeah. So
this is oh God.
Yeah, just whatever you got to do to get it done. So that was they just kind of left me there, and they would take you to jail today, I think, if you did that, but back then it probably wasn't super uncommon. So but otherwise, yeah, it was pretty much like my parents worked like dogs. They were like not around very much, like during the week. So my grandmother mostly, I was with her most of my first 5 years of existence, if not longer.
So with the move out to Haslet, is mom's got the bus line to get to work, dad's got the cab still. That's the situation at the new house.
Yeah. So so this is like, we move out there like 82, my dad, or 88, yeah, I think it was summer 82, and then like my mom still lives in that house. It's kind of crazy. But she's still working in the bank. So one of the reasons we picked the exact house that we lived at was that it was walking distance to the bus stop for the Academy bus lines, so we were the last stop in New Jersey. So if the bus line's coming from like more interior New Jersey, we stops in Haslet, and then it's a straight shot to New York City. So she would take a bus in every day. That would be like a 60-minute bus ride, and then she would have like a 20-block walk. So it's a pretty long commute. But we picked that house because it was walkable from the bus stop. And then my dad's still working in the livery car service. He does that for a couple more years. He actually ends up buying his own by like 84, 85. He ends up buying like like a brand new Oldsmobile, and then, basically puts his own shingle up, right? And runs his own business, and like,
as a private car service, like.
Yeah, just like private car service. I remember it because I would have been about like 7 years old, and when they got the car, it was kind of like they called the car the business. Like dad bought a business, and it was basically the car. So gets a loan and everything, gets the car, and then he starts doing that. And then my mom's still doing it. Like this is her whole life. She ends up doing this, like just commuting to New York, working at mostly French banks for whatever reason. But like, so she's continuously doing that. Like there was periods of times where she picked up like a second job and all that. And then, my dad got the car. Interesting. There's a weird intersection there with like Wall Street, like early in my life, because my dad was so I learned this later. He talked about this later, but he's like mostly driving lots of Wall Street people, like corporate accounts. So later on in my life, I mentioned like a place like Peter Luger's. He goes, I used to go to Peter Luger's all the time, not to eat, because I would be like dropping people off and like waiting outside for them to come out. And so he like knew of Peter Luger's. He talked about all that. But what I didn't know, this was like all stuff that was like filled in later as I got older. But my dad, he went bankrupt on the car business, on the cab, because in the crash, basically the crash of '87 wiped him out. Like he had no more clients, couldn't get any more business. And but then they told me something like I think he made $100,000 one year in like, I think like '86, right before. This was crazy. Like my mom was probably like in a bank making like high 20s, something like that. Like, and
if that for that era, like that.
Yeah, for that era,
Yeah.
My dad made $100,000, and like I didn't know about this till like way later. And then he made like so he had like a really good year in '86, and then the business was bankrupt like a year later. And then that was, so this takes me, I'm almost like 10 years old at this point. So when that business goes under, but the '87 crash hit me in ways that I didn't really appreciate at that age.
You didn't even know, but yeah, there it is.
Didn't even
in the
know.
Family. So tell me some more. So by that age, by the end of elementary school, you start to have some new fun experiences in your life. Is this when your uncle married the lady from Staten Island? I think we talked about this on the other.
Yeah,
podcast.
that actually was at that time. I remember I was like, I remember actually again, I don't understand any of this because I'm 10, but I guess he like took me on one of his dates because So, well, this is the story. So like, I was really, this is the mid '80s, right? I'm like really mid late '80s. So I'm really into the WWF. My grandfather was like super into WWF, and my grandfather would watch. His English wasn't like perfect or anything, but he would watch sports constantly, and he would love wrestling too, constantly. But he always had the sound off. He never had the sound on. Yeah, he would just watch. There was always sports on, but never with the sound on. But he loved wrestling. So he got me into watching wrestling. And so I was obsessed with the Macho Man Randy Savage is literally one of my favorite people that's ever lived. So I'm super into wrestling. And my uncle, he meets this woman. He's in Brooklyn. He meets this woman, lives in Staten Island. She's going to become my aunt. But they end up, he takes me he's like, I'm going to surprise you one night. He comes out and he gets me from New Jersey and we go to New York City. It's kind of a big deal. Like I'm going to New York City again. It feels like I'm in Manhattan. Cause when we went to New York, we only went to Brooklyn. I would very rarely go to Manhattan when I was younger. We go in and we go to the Garden and we're going to watch wrestling on Monday night. I think it was a Monday night. So so first of all, that means I'm going to go to bed late. Cause like I'm in school and like, this is a Monday night. So he takes me and the woman, my later aunt, she already has a son from a prior marriage. He's 4 years older than me and he's super into wrestling. So this is when we meet. So they
Monday
bring us
night
to wrestling. I remember the
Garden,
first match.
live wrestling. That's what
Live wrestling. I remember we walked in, we were like a little bit late walking into our seats, and the Rockers were were the first card, and it was like Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty were the right, like they were the Rockers, and they're just fighting some scrubs, And but I remember I remember that being like the first match, and so me and this cousin, that cousin ends up being like really influential. His half cousin ends up being like really influential to me from that point, sort of going forward. That was like he was like what got me into music, and even like he was a good athlete too. So I worship this dude. He was 4 years older than me, so I'd have been like 9 or 10, and he was like 13 or 14, and I just worshipped him.
So like straight off out of the wrestling night and that experience, like, do you know from right then and there, you're like, this guy is awesome. Like whoever this kid is, that
Yeah,
just met is awesome.
I totally, like, he would come, like, we would do this thing where like they would like, so they got married, my uncle and my aunt, they get married, and they live in Staten Island, and so every summer we would do like a swap where me and my sister would go to their house for a week, and that cousin would come to my house for a week.
Vacation. Your vacation is ours.
Totally. But I was like, I just looked forward to that so much. And I just worshipped him. So we would like, I just remember like playing Kid Icarus on the Nintendo, and like, well, actually he would play it and I would just watch. And he was like, he's going to beat the game. And I'm just sitting there like I'm like the navigator. I'm like, oh, try this. And the eggplant guys are like trying to knock you down and all this. So, yeah, it was just we ended up like forming a bond, and he, like I said, he was the kind of the one guy, he gets me into music and, different like sports stuff. He was like really, really encouraging of me in general, because you grow up with like Egyptian immigrants, like things are kind of, America's like this foreign place. You're like kind of weird. You don't really fit in. And he was like a gateway to like fitting in better. So
because he had already kind of figured it out, right? It's that older kid, like slight cheat code. Like they tell you stuff that all of a sudden, back to the status thing. Like totally. They tell you stuff that can increase your status immediately in other 100%.
I mean, he was like I said, he was like an athlete, and I remember when he went to like high school, he went to like Curtis High School, and they were running he was a wide receiver in a run and shoot offense in high school. And this is like 1990, and the Oilers actually was a fan of the Oilers for a little while in there, like Warren Moon
was great.
Ernest Givens and all those guys. And so he was a wide receiver in a run and shoot offense in high school, which was just kind of crazy. And he was like super fast, and like I totally, I just worship this dude. So he that whole definitely like showing me the ropes, is always really encouraging, like I like never thrown a ball before, and so we'd go out there and like throw a ball, and he'd be like, he'd be so encouraged, like, dude, you have a pretty good arm, like you should be playing sports, like and like just whether it was true or not was like irrelevant. He was just had my back.
What did you end up playing sports? Did you end up doing any of that stuff up to any level?
I didn't. Actually, the only thing I did was I did Taekwondo for like a decade, from like age 9 to like 17. In high school years, I like competed. I like fight in tournaments and stuff like that. But like, I don't think it was not like I never like, never did anything like especially special in that. Just kind of did it, and then and otherwise, I went to I was into bodyboarding and then surfing in high school too, which sounds weird coming from New Jersey, but like there's like waves, and there you can do that there. And then I was into that in my late middle school and high school years. That was kind of like, eventually, I would say probably by like 9th grade, I would be taking the bus down, same academy buses, just the ones that ran down the shore. And I would take the bus. We'd put our boards down on the bottom, and we would just take a bus down to the shore, me and like my buddy that lived down the block from me. And that was like our jam, and we were like really into that. And then other than that, I just played intramural basketball. I loved basketball. I loved basketball and football. I went to Christian Brothers Academy in New Jersey, which there was no chance I was going to get to play sports there, because they're like one of these, like, I lived near De La Salle High School here in California, And they're like the school that has like 2 documentaries about their head coach, or they didn't lose a football game for like 30 years. And it's like the Christian Brothers Academy schools are ridiculous. Like I think our freshman year basketball team all played D1. Like, just like, so there was 100, it's an all boys school. So you have 250 boys per class, 150 like try out for the basketball team freshman year for one walk-on spot, because all the other kids have been recruited since they were like in 6th grade.
Right.
So there's no chance I was going to play any sports in high schools. But the intramural team was actually it was actually a pretty good level of competition, because there was just lots of good kids that just had no chance of playing on the actual interscholastic.
How'd you end up at this school though? Like how'd your parents decide this school?
Yeah, it was actually, so I went to Catholic school my whole life. So from kindergarten to 8th grade, I went to a school called St. Benedict, that was, like 2 miles away from my house. And then after that, well, by the time I'm like in 8th grade, 7th, 8th grade, like I'm good at school. So it's like, I know that I want to continue to be doing good at school. I was in like, they would do tracking. So it's just like they didn't call it honors, but it was like the A and the B or whatever it was. I was in the A for everything. I got good grades. So it was just felt like the natural thing to continue to be like, I'm going to be good at school. And, Christian Brothers was a great school. Like it was not just good at sports, like academically really good, and a lot of AP classes. And I'm just thinking this is going to be my best. If I go here, it's going to be the best chance I have to go to a good college one day. So I was just like, I'm going to do good at school. It's important to me. And I had come to that on my own. I think I had to have that driven into me when I was younger, because I don't know if I would have cared. Like my sister was like naturally self-motivated, and she was, what do you call it? Like she wasn't a valid. She was like a salutatorian of everything she'd ever did. At least never number 1, always number 2. But like, but she was self-motivated. She didn't have to, like, my mom didn't have to ride her, but like she had to ride me, because I had to be wrangled a little bit more. Maybe that's just being a boy. I don't know. But but I knew I wanted to do good at school, and I chose that. And the whole all boys thing was, it felt like just the cost of this. Like, I want to go there. And in hindsight, I'm actually grateful. I think the experience was actually really good. Going into it, it was definitely a negative in my mind. Like, it felt like maybe I'm going to be arrested development or like stunted in some way if I don't have any girls around me. But it ended up being a good experience, actually. So so that's how I end up there. It's my choice.
What about, I got one more high school thing that I have to make sure we hit, because this is critical. 16, I don't know if this is 16th birthday or what it was. You and somebody get some guitars.
Mm-hmm.
What's the story? What'd you get?
Yeah, so me and my surfing buddy,
Who's a surfing buddy? We can put names on these.
Oh yeah,
withhold if they're all like hard.
Really good buddy of mine. His name is Jason J. He was an amazing character in my life. Just like that, he lived 3 doors down, and we were attached at the hip. And even like my mom, it's like just great. Like, my mom loved him, even though he was a bit of a fiery dude. Like, he was a really interesting guy. Actually, he's still a very interesting guy, because he was a jock. But he had this totally artistic side to him too. So he was like this character that he was like, what's his name? Like Pink in Dazed and Confused. Like, he could move between all the groups seamlessly in his high school. Now, he went to the local public school, but he could move through these groups seamlessly. Like, girls liked him. He lettered in 3 sports. He was, he dunking in high school, and like really good athlete, runner and everything as well. But he also had, he was really into music. And he didn't care what anybody thought. Like, and it probably helped that like nobody really like he was cool, so no, he didn't really have to care what other people thought. But like he would drive around town and like remember he had this like Toyota Celica, the old Toyota Celica. Once he started driving, and he would drive around town like blasting Miss Saigon. Like he was into like Broadway shows, but then me and him would be like playing NHL 94 all night long, just absolutely cranking Bleach. But he was like he was super into Nirvana. He was actually the one who got me more into Nirvana, like because I was like the Alice in Chains guy and he was the Nirvana guy, and but we would like get each other into different stuff. Like I got him into Queensryche, he got me into Pink Floyd, he got me he would like listen to the Beatles. He had a better music taste than me overall. I was like into trashy 80s rock. He wasn't really into that. He was a lot more into like 70s rock or the Beatles. And then they had this whole Broadway show thing. So anyway, Jay, this is a shout out to Jay because he's the best. And he ended up so he and I ended up like getting guitars when we were 16, and he ended up going a lot further with music. Like he's got like a room in his house now, which every instrument in it. He's learned how to play so many things. Like he just really went far with it, as far like on a casual, in a casual way, but far.
Yeah.
So and he did end up like playing in bands and stuff like that. So, but yeah, we get acoustic guitars, and Nirvana Unplugged is in the air those days, and yeah, you just wanted to jam out to that, and you know, we're kind of playing that or whatever's on the radio. You know, you learn how to play some that band Live was popular. That band some of the Bush was kind of popular back then. Like we listened to them. And,
had to learn how to play Glycerine. Realized it was the same as one I could
Glycerine
learn.
on guitar, like really easy power chords, so like a little palm mute in there. Like so, we were kind of into all that, and so that was what got me just like really into the guitar for a year or two. Well, this is like I don't remember if it was my sophomore or junior year, but like because I'd basically stopped paying attention to the guitar for all my 20s. I go to college, I just don't have time for that anymore.
So what happens at the end of high school? Like does senior year just come and leave with a whimper and you're off? Or is it like, when do you know you're going to college and you're hell bent on getting out?
So weird thing is, so I ended up going to Cornell, and the weird thing is, I had known I wanted to go to Cornell from like 9th grade, and this is like one of these like weird path dependent things, but why did Cornell ever come into my brain? It was because my mom heard that there was a college called Cornell, and it was a good college, and that it was hard. She remembers it at Cornell back then. I remember again, whether it deserved it or not, I have no idea, but it had a reputation for being hard. And my mom's grind mindset, she's like, that must be good. So she would put it in my head, maybe you should consider this college called Cornell. And I don't know anything about colleges. And so I just get it in my head, like, I'm going to go to Cornell one day. And then,
so like from 9th grade, you're like, the next step will be Cornell. That's in your brain.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm going to go to college, but in my mind is a little bit of favoritism to this thing called Cornell. And it's like, it's almost because there's a lack of anything else filling up that part of my brain. Like I don't even know what the other colleges really are. I just know that this place is supposed to be a good college. I probably heard the word Ivy League and was like, that's probably good. And it wasn't, so I got to my senior year, and then early in your senior, I guess the fall, maybe it was like early fall senior year, maybe it was late summer, I don't really remember. We drive up to Ithaca, and I walk around the campus. I really immediately love it. It's got, Ithaca, New York, it has a classic.
Beautiful.
It's very bucolic, right? And I know I kind of want to go away from home, but I don't want to go that far. So Ithaca is only 4 hours from where I grew up. So like if you needed to get home in an emergency, you could. So I didn't open my mind to anything. Like I wasn't going to the West Coast. So I ended up applying. So I applied to Cornell early decision, because I heard you have a higher chance of getting in. So I'm like, well, I know I want to go there. So this is a pretty easy choice. I apply that early decision. I applied to 3 other schools. I applied to Cornell. That was like, dream school. I applied to Villanova just because like that was like a common place for people to apply to coming out of where I went to high school. Like a lot of kids went to Villanova. It's a Catholic school, not that far away, whatever.
Plus, they all saw Wildcats, so they were like, Goldie Hawn, come on.
Yeah. Actually, funny thing about Villanova, a guy my year, his name was Brian Lynch. He was a starter on the basketball team freshman year in my high school, which is insane. I mean, I've seen this dude 360 dunk in a game in high school. He ended up being 6th man on Villanova. He married Kim Clijsters like years later, whatever. But like he was a total stud, but he ended up going to Villanova and played hoops for them. So that he was in my graduating class, but although we weren't friends or anything. So anyway, I applied to Villanova, Cornell, Penn. But Penn was in a city, and I kind of just applied there because I kind of felt like, well, it's close, and it's kind of close enough, and maybe I could get in. It was kind of also like this hype thing of like, where do I think I could get in at that point? And I had a sense like maybe I had a chance at Penn, but I don't think I had a chance at Columbia. And who knows where these like orderings come from? Like, you don't, especially back then, you don't know anything.
You didn't have the internet or anything. This is
right.
Based on what random people say to you in
it's
the
all
hallway, right?
You hear one thing, and it just becomes like, that must be true. That's it. So I applied to Penn, and then like I remember you sent an application, they send you something back to like do more, and there's like more essays. I'm like, I don't want to do this. I just didn't finish the application. I was like, I just don't even care. And then Rutgers, that was like my safety. So actually I do have an interesting story about like the decision to go to college. So I get into Rutgers, and they throw a bunch of scholarships at me. It was basically going to be free. And I remember the sort of it's coming up to that time where I had to decide. And I actually told my mom, I'm going to back out of going to Cornell, because I was just like, we can't afford it. Like, it's not. They were giving me some grants. Cornell was giving me some need-based grants. So this is I'll back up a little bit. My parents actually separated then they got divorced. So it's a single mom situation from the time I'm in 8th grade, basically. So this is like where my mom starts picking up 2 jobs. It was the whole separate. It was a bit of an ordeal. My father ends up moving to California. There's a lot of weird, complicated stuff going on. But like, we were like, even to CBA gave me a year of tuition for free, because my mom was just like on her knees, just like I don't want to take him out of here. We really can't if we don't have the money for this. And they were like, yeah, it's no problem. Like, all good. Like it was. And then when it came to college, I knew that we were like at the felt in our lives. It's like, so I told her, I felt really bad. I was like, I don't know how we're going to make Cornell work. I was like, I'll give what I can. Like, I'll work in the summers and I'll contribute, and she'll give, but I was like, it's just too much for her. And so I told her I'm just going to go to Rutgers. And this was like a very pivotal moment for me, because she's basically heartbroken. She's like, I cannot allow this to happen. She was like, your whole life will be different if you go to Cornell instead of Rutgers. And she was just like, I don't care what we have to do. This is, we will figure this out. You absolutely cannot choose Rutgers. You must go to Cornell. And she like, it's probably the nicest thing anybody's ever done for me, really. Like, because I was dead set on making the economically sound decision in the near term here. And so we basically pushed through this. we're going to do the Cornell. And we come up with an arrangement. Like, I think it was like $30K a year. They gave me a bunch of grants, need-based grants. And then it was whatever was left over was going to be something like 16,000. It was like 16,000 bucks. My mom was going to give 8. And then of the other 8, I was going to do like 4 in loans. And I was going to do 4 from how much money I could like make during the summer. And that was actually how we pushed through it. And then I paid my loans like a year out of college. Like it wasn't that much. It was like everything was like, it ended up all being like super copacetic when it was said and done. Right. So, but anyway, that's kind of, then I just go, I finished school out, senioritis, the whole thing, like finally get a break from grinding because I was trying to do good in school. And now I'm just like free as a bird because I get you early decision. You find out pretty early and you could just kind of coast.
Did you get in any trouble coasting, or were you a pretty responsible coaster?
No, I didn't get into any real trouble. I was a bit of my high school years, I was like a bit of a broody, annoying, emotional thing. Like,
For some reason, this makes sense to me. And I don't
yeah, I mean, it's just, I look back on it now and it's just like totally silly. I think it was like, it really was like, when your parents kind of separate, it's like, it didn't necessarily hit me that hard because I'll be honest, like by the time they separated, it was like a relief because my middle school years it was just not good. It was just not good. So like, it was hard to be around. The family life was very on edge. And by the way, this is like, goes back to, this affected me in other ways, like regarding like how I think about money, because they were not fundamentally incompatible people. They loved each other, but it was just too hard. Like the stress of like making ends meet and like not being around. And, like my sister and I were basically latchkey kids, again, which is common back then. So there's nothing unique going on here, but it was just hard. And I think they couldn't get through that. And then, once you can't get through these things, it's like, the tensions kind of rise and it becomes really like home life becomes really hard. It was not a pleasant situation for my sister and I. And, so by the time he moves out, we're thankful. Like, but you do get this, like a little bit of, I don't know if there's like a victim mentality to it, but I think we both felt a little bit, there was something like felt a little dark about the whole thing. And I think that we kind of internalized some of that I did. She didn't really. She's like so freaking well adjusted. It makes me sick, but like I definitely did. And so I would do good in school, but man, I was super withdrawn at school. My mom would come back. I mean, she talks about it to this day. She would come back from parent-teacher conferences in tears because she was like, your kid just does not give an F. Like he has a horrible attitude and all these things that actually hurt a parent more than anything. Like if I had like struggled in school but tried, that would have been way better. But the thing was like, I was killing school and didn't care at all. And this is like, now I really get this as a parent to be like, to watch your kid be good at something and not give an F. It just feels like what a waste. So now I really feel what I can understand, I should say, how she felt, but that's what she went through. And I was just an ass. So I didn't get into like major troubles, but I wasn't exactly, some gold star kid. So, I never got I got random stories, but like I never got arrested. I've been in situations or I've been in weird situations. I've even written about some of them, but like, no, nothing dramatic. Nothing that was going to affect me for a long time.
With Cornell, did you know what you wanted to go for? How'd you figure that, like, there's pressure once you're there? Like,
Yeah.
That's a messed up feeling. How'd that go?
Yeah. So, um, a little bit. Well, funny thing is, I grew up most of my life wanting to be a doctor because, like, you're an immigrant's kid, and that's the choice, right? It's like you got to be a doctor one day. That's what they tell you. So, but when I was about 11 or 12, it's kind of funny because I was just about the age my oldest is right now. We went out and visited my mom's cousin. He lives in Beverly Hills. And then, so I guess I'm 11 or 12. We're doing like a road trip thing in California. My father's still with us then. Maybe so it must have been like around 11. And we go to his house in Beverly Hills. And I mean, he was in Bel Air. He lived in Bel Air. So you're winding up the hills, the whole thing. We go to his house. This house, dude, is I've never seen. First of all, like I've never seen anything like this in my whole life. This
might as well be a castle. Like,
Yeah,
this is
like,
like
this
out
is-
of fantasy.
To this day, it's still the longest hallway I can ever remember in a private residence. Like, you went down this crazy hallway to a room that just had a billiards table in it, and it was just crazy. I'd never seen anything like that. And you're up in the hills, swimming pool, 360 views, like just nuts. That cousin happened to be, by the way, he was a big plastic surgeon to the celebrities. He had a massive practice, like more than 100 people, employees, like just king shit here, right? Like, so anyway, I remember he gave me $100, which I was just like beside myself on what that was, right? He gave me $100 when we were there. And then but he takes me over and he's talking to me and he's like, "What do you want to be?" And I tell him I want to be a doctor. And he pulls over the Wall Street Journal and he shows me the stock tables. And he goes, "Don't be a doctor. This is where the money is. Wall Street." And I don't know what the heck Wall Street is, decide. Even though my dad is affected by it, 87 and all that, like I don't know what it is. So he tells me, "You don't want to be a doctor. You want to make money, and you want to go to Wall Street." Meanwhile, I'm sure like he's the cliche of like some doctor that's day trading, and he's telling this kid, it's like weird lack of self-awareness. He's telling this kid like, "You should go to Wall Street. That's where the money is." Meanwhile, I'm like in this house built on an MD's degree, right? So, I don't, but of course, I don't put any of that together. So I'm just sitting there and I'm like, this guy that's really successful is telling me that I should not be a doctor. I should listen to this guy. So
Absolutely. Status again. Status.
totally. So now I'm like, so I get it in my head. This changes me. Like, I am not going to, I don't want to become a doctor one day. Like just this one trip knocks that out of my brain. So that said, I get to college and I'm like, what am I going to do? And I'm thinking, so I actually thought computer science first. I had a story in like when I was in high school, like took it was Q basic, something like that, like my sophomore year in high school. And I remember I wasn't really getting it at all. And I also wasn't caring to try that hard. So I basically got like a C, or maybe it was worse, like a D. I don't know. It was a bad grade in my first marking period. And my mother grounded me from anything for until the next, it was like 4 months. She was like, "You're done. No friends, no TV, no anything." Like she was just hardcore. And like, she didn't hit me. Thank for that. Like her parents would have beat the crap out of her. She didn't hit me. She was just like, "You're just not allowed to have do life." Okay. So with nothing to do, I was allowed to use the computer to be constructive, and I had homework and stuff like that in basic. So I'm like, you know what? I got nothing better to do. Let me try to figure this stuff out. Sure enough, I really like it. And so I tell her, would you buy me a book that teaches you how to make games in QBasic? And by like within one marking period, I'm like making games. I'm way past what the class is doing. And from here, I like totally crushed the class. And I made some stupid game. I remember it was like, you picked what size bullseye you wanted. And like, you would go hunting. And then there would be this bunny. So one person controls a bunny that walks around the screen, 2D stuff. And the other person has this, like, you could pick like an Uzi or a rifle or a bazooka. And it was like your sight was basically dependent on which one you picked. You picked the bazooka, just blow the whole screen up. So like I made this game in high school, whatever. And so it's all terrible. But I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna study computer science. Bro, I'm in the freshman year. I'm in the lab. I don't have a proper computer. I'm in the computer lab freshman year, and I'm just trying to get an environment set up. I'm there for like 7 hours. I only know people for like a week because it's orientation. So like, I'm just asking kids that said they were engineering majors because I was in the arts and science school at Cornell, like, which is basically liberal arts. So I'm like asking the engineering kids, like, yo, do you know how to do this? Can you help me with this? I'm like, I've been in here for like 7 hours. I can't figure this out. And I dropped the class within a week. I'm like, this is too hard. And so I give up. And which makes me feel terrible today. But like I gave up. And then the next 2 years, I am just, let me try sociology on, let me try psychology on, like, let me try all this stuff. And then I ended up doing an internship. Not an internship. I worked at my mom's bank between freshman and sophomore year. And like I said, we were back office operations, but there was a trading room there. And in the trading room was like this glass fishbowl of a room. All the traders were inside there. And I know that I would like have to bring them lunch. Traders, they don't go out for lunch. They take lunch at the desk. And the lunch is paid for, which I thought was super baller. I was like, they don't even have to, because I'm like packing my lunch every morning and all this.
A doctor gave me $100 once in California.
Yeah.
You guys have people bringing you lunches. I know.
Totally. It was, to me, it was crazy. I was like, these guys, so I would go in there and I would talk to these traders. I would bring them their food, but they would always talk to me. They were super nice. And so I would try to ask them, like, what are you doing here? Like, what's happening? And they'd be like, they would show me like, this was all treasury stuff. So it's all fixed income. And it's all
these are
like,
bank traders
we're bank traders, but it's not investment bank traders that they're
Right.
putting guys up on options deals and all this stuff. It's like it's like funding operations for the bank. So it's a lot of repo trading and like words that I didn't know what they meant back then, but like it was all this funding kind of stuff. So they just have to like fund the treasury of the bank's treasury. So they're explaining all this stuff to me. I don't know what they're saying, but all I'm thinking to myself is these guys get lunch bars with them and they're so smart. And they follow the news, and they read the news, and then the news is something that then gives them ideas, and then they do ideas based off. I'm like, that's crazy. Like that whole thing is crazy to me. Like, so I just like, that sounds really interesting. So I go back my sophomore year and I'm thinking to myself, I was still following like a psych major, doing like the courses that would sort of like put me on that path. But then I take Econ 101. I love the professor there. I take Econ. I end up taking macro my second semester of sophomore year. And I'm like, I kind of like this Econ stuff. And knowing what I did over the summer, I was like, maybe this is like, I should be doing this. So then I look at the course syllabus and I realize like, oh, you know what? This is, I look at the path to get the major and I was like, it's the easiest path. Like I only need to take like 8 more courses in the next 2 years. And because I had like decided what I wanted to do late, that was actually important to me. But also I did have this personality of like, I'm find the easiest way the solution to everything, which is why I couldn't push through CS, right? It's like, there was no shortcut here. So I end up picking the econ major. My grades up until that point had been a bit troublesome, especially my freshman year. You had Cullen on your show like recently, which is an amazing episode. And I got to tell you, me and Cullen, we must be like your brothers from different mothers, because that story was his story. I was like, felt so resonant to me, other than the fact that he's got like 7 siblings. I only have 1. But he talks about his freshman year was a bit of a disaster, because he was like, he went to all boys school too. He was the Jesuits. And then I'm like, same thing, man. I'm just like, freshman year, total disaster. So I get terrible grade. I had a 2.4 GPA my like year 1. I'm taking Arabic, which that's my first language. and I'm not doing well in the class, I can speak well, like better than everybody in the class, and like I can hear it all better than everybody else. And like the writing, I'm just like, F this. So that was a 6 credit class that you took every day, like 5 days a week, whatever. I'm like bombing Arabic. So my mom is just like, okay, well, you're not going to be able to stay at school if you don't like fix yourself here. Okay. You're going to come home. So I fixed myself. But anyway, once I picked my major, I think I got like a 4.2 in my major. Like once I was like, this is what I'm doing, it was like, I'm going to destroy this. Like, and then, so that ends up like, I finished the sad thing is I feel like I know nothing about economics. So it's like, it's all like a waste. I'm like academically, my whole college was a kind of a waste, but it did have there was one neat thing about it. Because I was in the psych school, I actually tried to get I don't know what you call it, where you like work for a professor. I tried to work for Tom Gilovich.
Okay.
I had no idea. He's the hot hand guy, right, from behavioral finance.
Right.
I had no idea, and I think Thaler was there at the time too. Like, these were all names that meant nothing to me. I just thought that what they were doing was interesting, this behavioral psychology stuff. And it turns out, like, year one at SIG is like, you're going to learn about all this stuff. But I was like, I actually like learned about all that in college because Cornell was like weirdly fixated on their psych department was like, and economics were like weirdly fixated on behavioral finance stuff. So when I got there, I was like, oh, this is like all rings a bell. Like, why did we like did this stuff in college? So that was kind of like the only like maybe useful thing that I got out of college was sort of was like at least being primed to learn about that stuff. I was like, it didn't feel totally foreign to me, but otherwise, like, I don't feel like I learned anything in college. It was a great experience, but it didn't like, it was just a thing that like, it was a degree so that it was a place where a company like SIG would go to recruit. That's what it was.
So is that what happens? Is it basically like, so tell the recruitment story, tell the job fair story. I know we kind of hit the book, I guess, at the beginning, but.
Yeah, it's a pretty, so I get I start my junior year. I start now taking it's not a trading class. It was like, it was called like futures and options or something like that. But it was like more into like securities. And it was Cornell has a hotel school. And the hotel school weirdly houses like a lot of the business classes in it. Like every one of the schools, Cornell's like 10 schools or something. Like every one of them has like their own version of business. So like in engineering, it's called OR, which is really operations, but it like overlaps and everything. The hotel school had like the most practical business classes in it that were the closest to like industry. So I take this like futures and options kind of class or something. I was like in the hotel school, like a finance class, investing class. And I remember it was like me, it was kind of funny. Like it was me and my one of my roommates. He's Israeli. I'm Egyptian. We sat in the front row. And the professor was Israeli. And he's this old professor. His like his whole thesis was like on like small stocks being there was like alpha and small stocks because they're like undercovered by Wall Street or whatever. That was like, I remember that was his jam. So anyway, we sat in the front. He's an older professor. He's a hilarious Israeli guy with a really thick accent. He gets a total kick out of an Egyptian and an Israeli being boys sitting in the front of his class. So, and we would go up after class and ask him questions. Like we thought it was fascinating stuff. So the end of the year comes. I did good in the class. I did a 300-person class. End of the year comes. And he asks me, do you want to be my head TA for this next semester when you come back senior year? And I'm like, yeah, sure. I mean, that's like a good opportunity. So he makes me the head TA, which is nuts because the two TAs beneath me were two French PhD students. They were actually engaged or married or something. Two French PhD students. And I'm like in charge. It was ridiculous.
And still an undergrad too. Like
I'm an undergrad.
You're the undergrad TA.
I'm an undergrad. So as the head TA, he asked me. So this lecture was it was like 10 to 11:15 in the morning on Tuesdays and Thursdays. He says, you should just talk to the class every Tuesday and Thursday morning before I go. I'm like, what the hell does that mean? He's like, just 15 minutes. This is like 1999, right? So it was like fall 1999. So I'm like, all right. So I start I'm going to the computer lab in the morning, senior year, and I'm going on cnnfn.com. And I'm like looking up whatever crazy shit happened in the market that day. Like Yahoo is kind of new. It's like, and I'm looking up like, and in tech stocks and everything, they're like going up like 50% in the afternoon, and it was ridiculous stuff. And I don't know a whole lot about this stuff, but I would just grab headlines. And then I would do the, I don't know, you like make them into transparencies so that you could put them on an overhead projector. Like I would like print them out, make a transparency so I could put it on overhead. I would go to the class on the overhead, put these things up, and then I would just talk for 15 minutes about trying to relate something that we learned in the class to what was going on in the news. And however, I think the class really liked it. I got to say, like, people will come up. It was hilarious to me because people will walk up to me afterwards and ask me all these questions like I was an expert on stuff. And I'm like, this is the most imposter bullshit ever. Like, I don't know anything. I'm just bullshitting. But it was kind of hilarious and confidence inducing because kids basically totally gassed me up because of the way they were approaching me.
Why do you think the professor, like, do you think there was some Machiavellian wisdom in young Kris? I want you to try.
I don't know, man. Again, I think it was like
he was hungover, like any plausible explanation.
I don't know, man. I just like when I think back on it, I'm like, I don't know. I knew he got kind of a kick out of us, but my buddy was an engineer, so he wasn't going to do any more finance stuff, and he knew that. I think because we'd go up and talk to him, I would think it was just like I was just there. You know what I mean? Like it was like I was like I just hung around the rim in some weird way, right? So he was just like, you do it. And I know, right? So I don't know. I don't think he saw anything in me. Shit, I don't see anything in me. That was just like whatever. That was like he just asked me to do it, and I rose to it because it's like sink or swim. Like you're going to be in front of these people. There's 300 people in that lecture. That's a popular class at Cornell. And I was just like, I was just like fearful. I can't fuck up. So anyway, it was really confidence inducing, like inspiring. So because of the way, again, like the way people treated me as if I knew something, and I kind of like was like, hey, maybe like I'm not such a dumb fuck after all. Like okay. So the career fair thing comes, and also it's helping to form this identity because people are like, oh, you seem to like know stuff about how a bond works or like how these, like you seem to know things here. So in my mind, I'm like, I'm fucking halfway to being a trader already, dude. Like I'm like, just give me a terminal,
bring me some lunch.
Totally. Like it's like complete false confidence in all that. But I take that, I go to the career fair, because I've like formed something of this weird identity in my head, and I'm lazy. I'm like, I don't want to be a banker. And also I did have a little bit of a reflexive, like if everybody's into this, I'm not into this thing, like whatever. It's fucking 90s grunge kid, right? So like, all these kids wanted to be bankers, and they would be like all in their suit. I just remember like there's all these kids like in their suits, like sucking up to like some Morgan Stanley person that's like 1 year older than them, but they're an analyst. And I just thought the whole scene was just mad lame. I don't know. It was just like, it just wasn't my jam. So I put investment banking out of my mind. Plus I heard you work 100-hour weeks, and I was like, why would you do that? That sounds dumb. And I also had this, which then, again, it's like all these impressions, this hearsay in my mind. I'm thinking to myself, oh, that's where you go if you just like want to work really, really, really hard. But like, if you're actually clever, this is where you want to trade. That's where like actually really smart kids would go do that. And I like fancied myself a shortcutter. Again, like, well, this was all super cringe in hindsight because I a lot of my views on life were completely flipped. But like at the moment, that's where I was. So I'm going around and I'm only looking for trading gigs. So at the career fair, but I don't really know the players. I'm just walking around, and like, that was where I had the situation where I'm walking around. Nobody's at the SIG booth because nobody knows what SIG is. And their recruiter, his name is eluding me right now. I can't remember his name. He had been like a partner for like a long time there. And not a partner, but like a ND. And he sees me walking around, and he literally just calls me over. And he asked me, like, do you like games? And he had dice and cards on the table. I don't remember exactly the things that he asked about, but I remember talking to him for like a few minutes, and then he says, do you want to come back for an interview? Like, right there. I'm like, all right. So I go back there, and that was when I had that moment where, like, I get all these questions wrong, and then he tells me I should go read this Lansky book. And then, so that's what ends up happening. I ended up like getting, so we have that winter break is when I get the call back for the second round interview. I crush that because he gives me the answer key. And then I get invited back for final rounds in Bala Cynwyd, Pennsylvania at the headquarters, which was like 10 more of those kinds of questions. And then rotations through like lots. It was like a whole day of whatever, super day or whatever. You going around, and like, it's an exhausting day of like interviewing with like all these people. But like, I would say like at the end of that, you were like, pretty sure I'm going to get this job. Like, I'm going to get the offer here. It doesn't feel like, it felt like if you had gotten to that point, you were like really high probability to get in. It didn't feel like you were going into like another tournament for your life. It felt like more secure than that. Like, so, I do that, and then, you know, sure enough, like, I get an offer. I get offers from a couple places. It was like Heartland Trading Company, which was a day trading shop.
Okay.
Which would have been interesting, which was interesting to me because like you would have basically been trading from day one. So I thought that was interesting because I was like, oh, you get to just go right in there. SIG, I got an offer from Spear Leeds and Kellogg, which was another big market maker at the time that was later acquired by Goldman Sachs like a year later. And then one bank, I think it was Lehman, and then one bank. And then I'll share this because I think this is like it's a piece of advice I give to people now when I give a talk. But like when I was, I have all these offers, and I'm like, I don't know, I'm trying to decide. And SIG was the lowest in terms of money. Like it was like, I think they were like offering 37.5, and it was like 37.5, but like might have been like a $10,000 signing bonus or something. I don't remember. And the other offers were higher. The money was higher, like right out the gate. But I liked SIG the most. So when Mira Donahall was like running HR at SIG at the time, and she's like, okay, it's like this conversation. We're like, what are you gonna pick? Like, are you in? You out? What's your deal here? And I tell her like, I I like you guys, but like the money's kind of like money's a big deal. Like $5,000. It's like they're offering five grand more, and I don't know. It's like I like you guys, but like, can you raise the money? And they're not going to raise the money. It's like it's a standard thing, right? So Mira tells me, she says, listen, the most important thing for you right now is not how much money you're getting at this moment, right? You want to go where you're going to learn the most, where you're going to, right? And she's like, so she says to me, she says this really what I think is a masterful line, where she goes, you're going to be rich no matter what happens. Which is like, if you're growing up the way I grew up, like, this is, I mean, what the most manipulative comment you could ever possibly make, right? It's an insane comment. So, but she says that. She goes, no matter what happens, you're going to be rich. The only question is like, who do you want to learn from? And she's holding the nuts because there's no way you go through their interview process. She knows these other companies. She's like, there's no way you went through our interview process in those other ones and didn't walk away being like, what is the best place? Like, so she knows that I know what the best place is if she frames it in that way. So sure enough, I like signed there, right? It's like how I was like but I do think she is correct about like my whole thing is like when you're 21 years old, like you are all human capital and no financial capital at that age. So like you want to compound your human capital, you go find the best people you can learn from and you latch onto that and you just go. And I didn't necessarily understand that fully then. I had some clue of it because I realized that I should probably pick this place, but now it's really a lot more clear to me that you should do that. So anyway, that's how I end up with SIG. And then, I get that all happens pretty early. I know that I got the job pretty early in my spring semester. So then like the remainder, I think the remainder of my senior year was just a disaster, but like whatever. It didn't matter.
But whatever. Within a few short months, you're in beautiful Pennsylvania. Is that where they send you first? Where do you start?
Yeah,
SIG?
you spend a year. You go to I was placed on the Amex. You do rotations there. I worked for, you would work for various traders in various pits. So it's like, I started off in, it's kind of funny. I often think of like SIG, maybe it's just like a pompous thing to say, but it's like the people that were there in like 1999, it was like the equivalent of Bell Labs was. Because when I think about who I worked for, it was like the first guy I worked for ends up being one of the early employees at Hudson. Like I worked for him for one day, by the way, only one day. He ends up becoming like an early employee at Hudson River Trading. He retires when he's like 35, richer than God. Like the next guy, day 2, they're like, you know what? Try this pit out. Maybe I wasn't too smart. I wasn't smart enough to be trading MSH index options with that guy. So they were like, maybe you'd be better over here. So there I'm in the SPY ETF, not the options, the ETF, which was traded on the floor. Reggie Brown is my boss. So Reggie Brown is my boss. After that, I go from Reggie Brown I do a rotation there. Then I work for Jason McCarthy, who ends up founding 5 Rings. He was an also early Jane Street guy that ends up founding 5 Rings. Then I'm working for Dick Emmett, who ends up becoming the CEO of Jane Street, I believe. Like, and then like I can kind of go on, like, and then like all of these like less like people that have become wildly successful in like more private things in trading. That's like all the people I'm learning from my first year. And so, and like also I'm like a runt of a litter in terms of like brains, as far like half the kids are like from MIT. Most of the kids got like an 800 on their math SAT. Like my colleagues were smart as F. Like, and then my bosses were like the people that rose up and like become those important people. They're not just smart as F. They are the most competitive human beings. They're like the equivalent of athletes in the mind, right? So like, I just remember one guy like so intense in the pit, like he like pops a blood vessel in his eye in an argument, like just totally like Reggie one time, like just a blip, like just so intense, like he vaporized a phone like that on a like just right in front of me, like just super intense in all ways, plus smart, like which was it was a little bit of intimidating environment, and I know that I'm like a bit of a runt on the brains part. So I just really realized at this point in my life, I actually need to work hard. And I need to like find a way to be useful here, because I'm not going to beat anybody on being like the most clever cat. So I need to get some skills and be useful. And so I didn't know how to use Excel. I got really good at Excel within like 2 months. That's all I did was like rebuild Reggie's models for him so that I would get good at the computer. And then I would go and like to the other traders, I'd be like, let me build you this thing. Like they'd be like, I'm trying to do this, whatever. And it's like, they're busy trading. I'm like, I'll just do it for you. And I would just make stuff for people. And then that kind of like ended helping me get to class quicker. Like I got the trading class by, and I worked really hard at mock trading, mental math, being fast at that stuff. You kind of have to do that. And like So then you go to the official class. Like in my case, it took me 9 months to get accepted to the program. Then you go live in Ballackinwood, Pennsylvania for 3 months. And then in the 3 months, you spend 4 weeks doing theory. And then I remember that, like, you spend 2 days learning black holes. You spend like 4 hours one day, like deriving the assumptions, 4 hours one day doing, like, actually deriving the equation. I was like 20 minutes into that stuff, and I'm like, bro, I don't know about this. This is like, just tell me what I need to know, because I don't know the point of this. I don't get it. So, so I get through it all, and then we get to the mock trading. I feel pretty comfortable there, and then after the 3 months, you do all the poker and all that stuff too. Like, you have to go through a poker tournament where it lasts the entire 3 months. You have to play 100 hours minimum, and then the person with the best sharp ratio at the end of it wins. They get a big prize, and more importantly, they get status within the company as they won the poker tournament in their class. Like, that was like a big thing there. So, anyway, like, people that were like won it were like highly regarded. They'd go back to like their home exchange and they were like, "Oh, you won the tournament. He's probably pretty smart." All that. I was crap. So the get through all that, and then you get placed back on your home exchange. So I went back to New York. I ended up back on the Amex and be a market maker in an options pit. And it took me. I got there right after 9/11, like a week after 9/11. So the exchanges were like, everything was in flux. So I actually was kind of like not working for like 3 weeks, because they're like, you're supposed to be on what they called on a badge, where you have your license and you're allowed to trade. You're on your badge. They couldn't get me the badge in like because things were kind of shut down. So, and there was like nothing. They were like, you don't really have a job right now, so you just like kind of hang out for a couple of weeks. So I hung out for a couple of weeks. I started trading in October of 2001.
Wow.
Yeah.
What you're in New York for a couple of years.
Yep.
You're there a ways longer. You do you meet your wife for the first time in this stretch?
Yeah, we meet in so we meet in 2003. It's actually on my birthday.
You're still at SIG. You're still at SIG.
I'm still at SIG, yeah.
Birthday.
I'm at
Okay.
SIG until 2008.
All right.
In 2003, my roommate was dating this girl who had become part of our big friend group and all that. But like, he was dating this girl for like a week, and it was, I always kind of mix it up, but like, my now wife was crashing on her couch because she had like a falling out in a relationship. She was crashing on her couch, and on my 25th birthday, my roommate threw a surprise birthday party for me at Climate 8, which is this bar in New York City. I say the name of it because randomly I've met another trader who's met his wife in Climate 8, and it only existed for a year. It's kind of weird. So anyway, he throws a birthday party for me at this bar. So it's a surprise. And I guess his girlfriend tells this girl that's on her couch, "You should come meet the guy whose birthday it is. I think you guys would hit it up." Meanwhile, she knows me for like a week, and she knows me for 2 weeks and her for a week. But whatever.
She's Seems like life wisdom from people you just met when you're crashing.
Totally. It's basically like, you're single, he's single. That was so you should come to this thing. And so she ends up coming to my surprise birthday party. All my friends are there and all this thing. And me and her end up talking the whole night. Like, it's basically like, I basically ignore all my friends. And she and I are like talking at the bar. And then after Climate 8, we all went to this place called Manhattan, which is down like closer to the Lower East Side, that is now also gone. And then we're there till like 3 o'clock in the morning. Funny thing about this, weird thing about this, maybe a little stalkery, but so it's a great night. We really hit it off. And then she ends up like, so like we go, like everyone goes back to their own homes or whatever. The next day, it's like, I'm kind of wake up, I'm like hungover or whatever, and she's just on my mind. And I'm like, she told me where she lived. And I don't remember like if I had her number, if I didn't call her, I don't remember what it was. I remember wandering up to her neighborhood and just walking around and being like, maybe I'll just run into her.
Where she lived on the couch, or where she like lived?
No, she had, so she had like moved, like she was like they knew each other because they're like on the couch, but she had just got this apartment with this other girl who was hilarious. This like total stoner girl was hilarious. On Cornelia Street near the West Village basketball court. Like she had like not moved in yet, but she was like, I got an apartment, or she might've moved in, but like, I remember seeing like, she didn't have like furniture or something. And she had just like secured this lease and she was there. And I remember walking up to that area and just walking around being, I don't know, it was like, I felt something when I was like, we were there and I was just like that night. And I just was like, I don't know, I just want to be around wherever this girl's aura is, man. It was just, I just knew. And like, I think within a week I was I didn't tell her. I told her afterwards. I was like, I just knew you was it. And I was at that time, I was like dating around on like Match.com was like a big thing back then. I was like early on the internet dating that way. And like, I was just like from 2000 to 2003, just like, like a bit in that like stupid trader life, like living a little bit fast at night and a little reckless and not so smart and all that. But as soon as I met her, like I felt something there and I was like, oh, this is different. So that's all it took really was like that one night. And then, that's 2003. So it's been a while, 22 years. We ended up getting married like in 2009.
What happens next with Stig? So you're at Sig for a while. You're doing all the stuff. You have all these great mentors, all these great people you're learning from. What brings that tour of duty to its natural conclusion?
Yeah. So what ended up happening is in 2005, I basically talked myself out of a job with Sig. I had a trading post where I was trading ETFs for Sig on the New York Stock Exchange. And my assistant trader, I had taken the position over from another trader who left to go back to school. And I took the position over, and that guy's assistant who had like come up through like, Sig had like this, it was like caste system really. It's like you either got into Sig because you were recruited out of college into their assistant trader program, and then you were kind of like anointed that you are on the path to becoming a trader. But they also had a lot of employees that had not come up through that path, whether it was acquisitions or just some other channel. My assistant was one of those people. He had like not come up through the assistant trader path, but he was amazing. He was just great and he could do everything. So I felt redundant. So I went to my boss and I was just like, I think I'm kind of wasted here. I was like, this kid here, he's great. You just have him do everything. And so, but then I was like, it's not like they had like a job waiting for me. So I'm like just in limbo. So they're like, fine, like just stay there. We'll keep it in mind that you're bored or whatever. And you want this guy to have the job. So sure enough, within like a couple months, another senior trader reaches out to me. He's like, hey, I'm going to go to the NYMEX and I'm going to try to trade energy options over there. And I need somebody else. And I heard that you were just like looking for a change. So Sig tells us like, hey, we haven't actually succeeded over there in our prior attempts to go there. It's kind of hard to break into those pits over there. It's a different animal. It's open outcry. It's not super electronic. You're still going to have to like trade on fingers and hand signals and all that stuff. And yeah, it's just like not our home territory. And this is going to be really different. So like, if you can go give it a shot. And just try not to F up too bad. And we'll pay you what we're going to pay you for doing your current job. Like basically no risk situation. Right on. So I'm like, sounds good. Let's do it. So we go over to the NYMEX. This is like 2005. I spent like 6 months over there spinning my wheels. We're trying to figure it out. It is really different, but for technical reasons and for people reasons, it's just very different. So, but then we start to figure it out and we start to grow and we're doing good. And we're like, now we're bringing over people from like the other exchanges and be like, we need more bodies. And So this turns into like it turns into a really good business. And I run all of oil related trading, and the other guy is running natural gas trading. And in 2000, so what happens at SIG is when you go to SIG, they put you on a 3-year non-compete after you come out of the trading class. So, and it's really stringent. Like their non-compete sucks. And they basically, back then, again, the world is different, but like back then you would just like totally get underpaid. We were like basically on a pay scale. So it's like you get shafted on your pay while you're under the contract. And when you come off your contract, they're basically like, if we like this person, we will put them on a market rate deal. If maybe they're like this on the person, we're like, we wouldn't let them go. We'll just continue to like pay them some reasonable amount. And like, if they have attrition, that fine. So, they go through this, they end up liking me, and so they give me a really fair deal in 2007 where they gave me a strict percentage, and I have a good year. I get paid a bunch of money in 2000, like for my 2008 bonus. And
Great year for energy markets too.
It was a great year for energy markets. Yeah, there was like this weird stuff that was happening. There was like this corporation called Sen Group in the oil markets that was like basically, they were, corporate hedger that's supposed to be doing like sensible things, and they were cowboys. And everybody, and eventually it was like on that run up to oil, they were like selling options the whole way up. And then what happened is basically they had to keep buying back the stuff that they had sold at horrible levels, but they would double down and like sell the further dated. So they were completely affecting the curve. I'd say to this day, like I traded up from, like, I'd bought an apartment in like 2005. I traded up to like a loft in 2007, built on the fact that Sen Group was basically run by a bunch of cowboys, and we were just taking the other side of their stuff. I'm like, those guys built my house for me. Yeah. Like, so these guys, so I have a really good year in 2007. And at the time I'm in this pit, I'm in the gasoline and heating oil options pit, which is like 12 people in it. It does very little volume. It's incredibly niche. And it's just these misfits that were able to like, because it is a really hard pit to like break into. And it's not transparent. It's a much more, a lot of nuance in that particular game. There's a lot of opacity and like, but I was able to kind of like get in there, and I became friends with the people that were in there. And a bunch of them were backed by this company called Prime. And the guy, I know you did that interview with Kevin Muir, and I wrote about that interview. And I talked about how there was a guy that Kevin reminds me of that was like a mentor and an early backer I meet. That's where I meet this guy. And this guy is an artist, man. Like he's never had a proper job in his life. He's way too feral to ever work for anyone. I mean, he's had proper jobs and get fired from all of them. But brilliant. But he was the most well-traveled person I had ever met. And he didn't grow up with anything. It's like, he started trading silver when he was 21 years old as like a clerk down there. And he would take 6 months off a year because he didn't have like high demands for like, he didn't have like this money, like he wasn't super hungry about like status or money. He would travel the world backpacking 6 months a year. He was a voracious reader, and he became immediately like one of my mentors and idols because he was not like other people that I had met. He was living life like, he was marching to his own drummer, very much like Kevin came off to me exactly like this guy. I was like, wow, this is like the same person. And so this guy, he was a very disagreeable guy as well. Like he was like, people didn't like, he didn't have like, a lot of people found him quite annoying, all this stuff, because he was just like on his own wavelength. But this dude and me resonated. So he ends up convincing me. He was like, he knows how much money I'm making for SIG. And he was just like, you're getting paid a pittance, even though it was like you should get backed. And so he convinces me to go over there and run my own little thing. And he ends up going to Prime. Him and another guy are like, we want to back this kid. Like, we'll put up money, and you guys put up money, and he'll put up a little bit of money, and we'll back him. So because of my non-compete, I can't trade oil though. I can't trade the heating oil products, the gasoline products. I can't trade any of that stuff because of my non-compete. So I tell Prime, I pitch them like, you don't have anybody in your company that trades natural gas options. Let me trade natural gas options for you. And they're like, whoa, that thing is the widowmaker for a reason. I have to convince them that I'm steady hands. And I'm like, I'm not a cowboy. This is how I think about things. I go out to Chicago. I explain how I'm going to think about everything. They're like, all right, we'll give you a shot. So I become their first natural gas options trader.
And this is what year?
This is 2000. This is late 08. So I leave SIG in March 08. I take 6 months off to like try to get my health right and all that. Because I was basically just like, especially the last year was just trading work. I mean, it was a great year, but it was like everything else in my life fades into the background. It's just like work. And then, so 2008, I'm like, I'm gonna try to get my health back in order. I'm gonna buy an engagement ring, lock that up. And so I spend from like March to September. But before I leave SIG, Prime, these guys at Prime, they're like, I tell them like, hey, I want to take some time off. And they're like, look, man, you run your own business at this place. We are not a company that's cohesive. It's like you come and go as you please. You just have to, as long as you abide by our requirements on risk, you do whatever you want. You live however way you want to live. We don't care. So they're like, whenever you're ready, you come back. There's a spot for you. So I tell the risk manager there, I'm like, hey man, I'm going to F off. I'll call you when I'm done being bored. And so it ends up being 6 months. I come back. I propose to her and everything like that. And, and then I'm like, the fall comes and I'm like, all right, I'm done like messing around all summer. And I reach out to Tony, who was my risk manager, and I'm like, hey, I want to get back into trading. You get my account set up and all that, and voila, it's like I'm like the spot's waiting for me, and I just slot in, and I would spend the next 3.5 years or something there, like running my own group, expanding it, and then trading. I went from natural gas to like the shale. All this oversupply from shale basically wrecked that market.
Let's say
killed the volatility.
You're in the middle, and just to be clear for anybody watching, like this is in the middle of the unraveling of the global financial crisis. But
yeah.
because you're not in stocks or rates or anything else, like you're in a weird, you're not insulated, but it's a funny corner of the world that you're existing in right now through this.
Yeah, it's not. I always feel like a lack of kinship with the drama that happened around that. Like, it's something I feel guilty about. It's kind of like 9/11. So with 9/11, all of my colleagues were on the annex. They all went down into the bomb shelter of the annex. My best friend lived at 88 Greenwich, like right around the corner. Like he was displaced for months in 9/11. When I came back to New York, it's just the stories were crazy. Like not just at work, but even in my family. Like my mom was in New York, and my uncle like ran from the building, lost his shoes. Like it's the biggest thing that ever happened in my generation's sort of life, right? And after my trading class ended, I was bumming around in Cupertino in my college roommate's house for a week on vacation. But that's, by the way, how I decided I wanted to move to California. Like I knew in like 2001. But I'm like bumming around on their couch, and we had like a house party the night before. They were living in like a hacker kind of house. It was just like, it's like all out of the Silicon Valley. It's like total cliche. And my mom calls me the morning of 9/11, and she calls me and she's just like, I just want to hear your voice. And I thought she was crazy because I'm like, what do you, just leave me alone. What are you talking? Like I'm smashed, like I'm hungover. And she's like, have you turned the TV on? I'm like, what are you talking about? And then like, I hung up with her. I turned the TV on. And then I'm like, then it hits me. And I'm like, I feel the worst I've ever felt in my life. I just blew my mom off on like it's just like the worst feeling ever. And then I can't get a hold of her because all the lines are down. I can't call her. So like I've actually always felt like this weird guilt for like that area of my life being a huge part of my life. And I happen to not be there that week. Same thing with the financial crisis. I'm in the trading world and I sort of missed it. I didn't feel particularly affected by it. I mean, I did buy that loft at the peak.
Yeah,
but
but
so I felt
peak.
that
Yeah, yeah.
because it was like right. I bought it in like 2007.
The oil market offset. And I know you're market making. You're not trading, or you're not like long oil through this thing. But like, that was a very different experience in the energies market than it was in the equities market for the whole run up into it. And then you take those 6 months off.
Yeah. Well, the oil did go, like, oil went from like 140 back to the 30s. I think like wreck, but like I wasn't trading when it happened.
That's what I mean. You were off.
Yeah. Like I was just off. I missed the whole thing. I always feel like this weird thing about having missed that whole thing.
Or you're the ultimate market timer, but no.
It's just, yeah. Well, I wouldn't have bought my apartment at the peak if I was, but in any case, it was, so yeah, all that had happened at that time. And then like the gas market, basically, it was the kiss of, like, shale was the kiss of death for it. So like, I remember like I lost a bunch of money early in like maybe 2010. And we were kind of made the decision, my partner and I were like, I don't think we should trade gas anymore because this situation doesn't look like it's going to end. Like, this just looks like the vol in this thing is wrecked. And like, I don't think it's going to come, like, if it comes back, fine, we hop back in, but like, why don't we just wind down our book here? And then we're like, we got to figure out something else to trade. And that was like where things got really interesting because that was, I can't remember what, silver went to $50. So we were like, I quickly was like, let me go get a license to go onto the silver pit. So I had to get like a new badge for my jacket and like get the right credentials to be able to do that. So like I go and like, I don't remember if there was a test or not, but I think I go pass some shit. And then I just run into the silver pit one day and I'm like, I trade this now. And then like, you go into these pits, especially if you go into a pit where there's action and there's a lot of money being made and you haven't been there before, like when everything sucked and these people were just like there trading their 3 lots in this awful market and you show up just when it's good. It's like, like you're immediately on the outs. Right. So you got to you got to be really comfortable being around uncomfortable situation for sure. So like, but whatever, I do this, we break in there and we start trading. We turn all of our electronic trading technology from natural gas. We just pointed to silver, which didn't have a lot of option market makers. It was pretty nascent. So we were early. So we make a bunch of money in silver, and then we ended up losing a bunch of money in silver because like it was some stupid stuff that we did. But like it was overall a good experience. And then we passed the baton because that dies down and then the cotton market goes nuts. There's like giant short squeeze in cotton, basically like a big grower. There was this giant grower who had a hedge, like sensible thing to do. They're short cotton futures, but cotton futures start to short squeeze, and so the margin requirement is blowing out on them. So like they had the crop in the ground, but they
don't have the liquidity to.
They don't have liquidity because of the GFC. Credit dried up. Like this was like, if you remember back then, this was like when oil prices, like Morgan Stanley was like leasing tankers to like store oil because the contango had gotten so fierce. There was nobody that was like stepping up to lend to this guy to close the liquidity gap. And now it's like, well, the market now knows you're short and you're being squeezed. And this was all over for this dude. So like that market became crazy, limit up every day. And the cotton market has weird technical stuff going on with it. Like the limit is like 3 cents a bushel. But then if it hits the limit the next day, the limit expands to 4 cents. And then if like multiple months go limit, they change the rule again. And there was a couple where like, if multiple months go limit or double, or they close it and then it's allowed to go to double limit, They were like, if multiple months go double limit, they just close the market that day. So like there was one day where like I get in, I got my computer, like I go into the pit at like 8:30 in the morning. By like 9 o'clock, I go home. Like I was like, all right, I'd go hang out in the park. Like it was just, so that was like its own thing. So cotton was great. Make a bunch of money in cotton. And then coffee, that doesn't have a squeeze, but it picks up. And the coffee pit is like 30 feet from the cotton pit. So like cotton dies down. We're like, this is over. The cotton is like, there's an old crop, new crop thing going on. So it's like the squeeze is over. It's all the old crop. Old crop has nothing to do with new crop. So I don't care about trading anymore in cotton. So I leave cotton and then I go and I trade coffee for like probably almost a year. And then it was in this period of time that I like trading a bunch of different things. And I was like, the floor is not going to last forever. I should probably figure out like how to sit at a desk and a chair and like look at all the markets at the same time. And that was like, we started building a prototype for how that would work. And that ended up being my pitch to Parallax when they came knocking, like, and I was like, hey, funny you ask, but I actually have an idea for what I would do if you put me upstairs.
All right. So you're going to lightning round me through.
Yeah.
Because I think you're going to set the record on this. This is good. And I have to go back through some of these notes. The lightning round me through. So you pitch Parallax on, let me sit at a desk, and I have this whole way of seeing this. And just lightning round me through Parallax and how you end up, well, where you are today with Moontower.
Yeah. So the lightning round is I go to Parallax. We spend like a year building out infra, like not even really trading, just like building infra. Like, they have devs and all that stuff. So I'm kind of helping to guide that. And then just start trading commodity options, ETF options that have commodities and stuff. And then I do that for about 9 years. And then COVID happens. COVID is an amazing year if you trade options. Before COVID, I kind of had a little bit of, I started to get like a little bit of an inkling that like, I don't know if I want to do this my whole life. Like it's just a lot. It's been a long time. So, at that point it had been COVID ends. COVID was it was an exhausting year. I had been at it for 21 years. It was like, I don't think I want my life to just be this. And then I had started writing on the internet during the last few years at Parallax, and credit to Parallax. They never told me to shut up. They were actually a great place to work for. And they let us take a lot of risk and stuff like that. And they're smart. So it's like, it was a good place. And they ended up, I ended up getting confidence that I could probably do something else that didn't have the same cadence as trading. Because I had gotten a lot of good feedback on the writing. And I think that's really important. That's really important because like when you're a trader, you think you're kind of like, I've heard somebody say something like a lot of people that stick in finance for like a really long time, it's because they can't do anything else.
Right.
There's a grain of truth to that. Like, I think it's not so much that they can't do something else. It's that they become quite special. You can become quite specialized, and then you don't believe that you can do something else. So I do encourage people that like, it's good to like try to just like put your feelers out and try different things. And like, it wasn't like 2019 didn't come out, so I'm just going to quit my job. It was like, I'm going to just try this other thing and write on the internet. It gave me the sense that I can probably find a way to make my way through life doing a different pace, doing something that used my whatever talents I have in so much other ways. And I just needed to know that was possible. Like I didn't necessarily know that at the time. It wasn't orchestrated this way, but it was like, I knew that I felt like I was unemployable at any other sense. And I was like, I just don't like this feeling of, if I lose this job, I'm a realtor. Like, and only because a realtor will be like, hey, if you're willing to start at the bottom, we'll hire anybody. I mean, we're not going to pay you anything. So like, to them, it's a free option. So like, but I'm like thinking to myself, like, if I don't do this for a living, I'm like a realtor or an insurance broker, or like, I don't know what I am. Somebody where they don't say no to the person applying. So, because I have no skills. So let me try this. And that was like, the feedback kind of said like, oh no, you actually can be useful to people. You actually know stuff that's like helpful to other people. And like, so that was, I started to get that confidence. And then, by 2021, I'm like, okay, I should probably, I'm at this juncture. I could spend 10 more years doing this and like have lots of money and not have to really ever think about money again. If I could last 10 years, of course. But in 10 years, I'll probably be in the same boat where I'll be like, well, what am I going to do with myself? Or I could just get off right now when I've got energy and I don't like maybe I would probably have less ageism working against me. And if I'm going to be in the same boat anyway, just with less money, then I just do that because like, I'm not worried about starving. I could probably get hired somewhere else anyway, like certainly not at the level that I was before because that's, you built up relationship and seniority, but like somebody would pay me to work for them at some price that made me not starve. So it felt like this is not it started to flip into like, if I don't go see what's out there, or I don't try to live my own way, that's a bigger risk than staying. That's actually how it felt to me. Like I'll probably regret wondering if I could like build a life in another way, versus just feeling like I was sentenced to this one for another 10 years. So yeah, that's kind of how I ended up like coming to like leaving and figuring it out. And now it's kind of a lot of randomness and trying stuff and just being outward has led to like where I am now, where it's like I kind of have software, have a pretty big audience on the writing, and just trying to make my way in like this cobbled together life. Like not like I look at some of the people you've had on your podcast that are sort of like these solopreneur types, like Kevin Muir and Cullen and like Jason. It's like they're inspiring characters to me because it's like you can work really, really hard, and you're going to actually work harder now than I did at the hedge fund, which I think people would think is like sounds crazy because I work way harder for way less money. But it's kind of important to me to like, maybe I'm a little bit feral at the end of the day. So.
All right. This is a perfect segue because I got a ton of notes, but
yeah,
it's that last thing you said right there. And I've just like, I felt this swirl. It's in the margins of all these notes too, of like, you kind of figured out at the end there, or not the end, where you are now, like measuring status against yourself. Like there's no selling out yourself if you've taken yourself out of all the status games. Like what matters to you is now. And I'm thinking back to your dad where we started, when you told the story about the cab driver murders being the incentive to like buy the business.
Yeah.
Like that's like, it's crazy when people realize that like the game they're playing, like they have to figure out how to just play their own game. Kind of like put the blinders up to the other stuff. How old was your dad when he did the Haslet thing? 30s? Late 20s?
So my dad is, let me think. He was about 29 when I was born. So he would have been about 30, 37.
Okay.
38. Yeah.
So it was like later into his 30s, almost 40 when he had I'm going to launch the business, basically. I know.
Yeah. He would have been about 30, maybe 36, like 36, 37. Like he was in that ballpark.
How old were you when the end of I guess the end of Parallax?
I was 42.
Okay, a little bit after. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is taking away the outside world. And then also learning the inside world. I mean, the WWF stuff. Macho Man, forever. What was the Rockers? What was it? Was it Sweet Chin Music? What was the Shawn Michaels like big finishing move? Do you remember?
I don't remember. I just remember that their whole shtick was that they were high flyers, right? So lots of jumping off the top rope.
Exactly.
Lots of acrobatics. Like that was kind of their shtick. I don't know if Marty Jannetty ever I don't know how long he lasted. I think Shawn Michaels' career
He kept going.
He kept going, and I think he kind of transformed because like at some point he wasn't like, I don't think he was like the high flyer anymore, but
No, but it was something very fashionable and whatever.
yeah, and he became like darker. I think he became darker because those guys like came on, they were like, like wearing the colors of like those like hologram surf style jackets from like the 80s, It's like they came out with these ridiculous, like Ultimate Warrior colors.
Right.
Yeah.
It's I don't know, it's funny. And I have some weird memory of like a middle school buddy saying some like Shawn Michaels catchphrase or something from the last movie. Like, why? Why is this the guy you're obsessed with? And why is this the situation? The stories about your friend or well, your cousin, like playing Kid Icarus and just having that's kind of like your first mentor, like your first like non-family member mentor. What does it mean to have somebody who's like 4 years ahead of you or just like a little bit ahead of the same paths you're on? Because that's also a repeat theme here. You keep finding people to like, you're lost and then you're in the slipstream of this other thing for a minute.
Yeah. I think it's huge. I think it's huge because, well, first of all, it's a massive element of randomness in your life because like you could just meet somebody and they send you on this totally different path that you didn't imagine. And like, I don't know, like maybe people try to like engineer these things and like, we try to be conscious about who we surround ourselves with and all that. But when you're young, you don't have that. Like you're not conscious about who you surround yourself with. It's people just like they just get plopped into your orbit and you're like, okay, this person's around me now.
Right. Like gravity has put them here.
Yeah, gravity's put them here. So you're very you're really malleable at that time. So you're just going to start absorbing whatever is around them. I mean, this is like as a parent, this is like you think about this all the time because you're like, like your influence is going to wane and their peers' influence is going to ramp up. I mean, I have a 6th grader right now and like I'm super conscious of like the next couple of years. So this is, yeah, I just think it's like, it's just this element of randomness. I don't really, it's just a truism that you're going to absorb who's around you. And when you're really, able to be influenced, that's going to happen to you. And so and if you meet somebody that's just a little bit ahead of you, it's gonna, that's a very special relationship that could go really well or really poorly, but it's a really special relationship because they're far enough to get your adoration. They're close enough for you to see yourself in them. And then so it's a very unique relationship, I think, and maybe something to be conscious of as when you are the older person, that like if you have you've got some little duckling following you around. It might, I always think that cousin was like, he's a good soul, man. He like would boost me whenever he could. Like I could be awkward. We would go to I remember like we went to the movies and he was like he's like 14 or 15 and he has friends that are girls and they come to the movies. And I'm like the tag along 10 or 11-year-old. And the girls are really nice to me because they're like, oh, this little cute little kid is like hanging around here. But like that one, and he was always being like, tell them what you did. Like he's trying to boost me, like, hey, tell them that you're into this, tell them like all that stuff. And he's trying to raise my status all the time. And then I feel that the girls give you some feedback and you're like, you're not into girls, but yeah, you're only 10 or whatever. You don't get it, but like you feel good about the whole thing. I just think like, I've never looked at it as like, oh, I'm going to try to live my life the way John treated me. It's just like, but I'm aware that like you have all this influence on like the people around you. You should like try to, make people feel good and boost them up. And like, you don't know what you're going to unlock.
It's crazy too, because from John, then we get to Jay and, eventually blasting Miss Saigon in his Celica, which I still think is absolutely hysterical. But you find that it's that compression, because then you go from looking at somebody who's ahead of you to looking at somebody who's a peer, but realizing all the ways you're the same and all the ways you're really kind of unique and different. Mm-hmm. And that's a huge identity forming thing of like having that buddy.
Yeah, he, a great thing. It's just like a great thing I got from him. I still think about it to this day. of the kind of person he is, where he really didn't, he just did not care what anybody else thought. Like, it just, by the way, this is probably one of the biggest lessons my mom drilled into me. Look, if you're an Egyptian woman and you get a divorce, you are, you're going to put your middle finger to the world, because the world is not, your support structure is not going to be that supportive for you. Okay. My mom is a rogue, and she's a hard-headed lady, and she's tough as nails. And, she always told us that, like, you know, she's always like, you are loved, and you really felt it, and you should not care. Don't worry about what other people think. I mean, she just constantly drove this message into my mind. Like, do not care what other people think. And I don't think anybody can actually perfectly do that. And there are good reasons to care about, like, what people who you respect and love, what they think. Like, I do think it's more nuanced than just like, don't care what other people think. But I would say my wife to this day thinks that would say that this is my superpower. She's like, you somehow have the whole status game stuff. Like, she's like, I don't think I'm totally immune to it, but she's like, compared to most people, like, you're pretty immune to it. Like, you're never thinking in those ways. And I think that was like, what I think about it is like, Jay was like that. He was a huge influence on my life. My mom is like that. And I don't think I consciously ever became that way. As a matter of fact, I was the opposite. I was always looking for approval. I was always like, how do I fit in? I was worried about these things, and I desperately wanted to fit in. But as I matured, as I got older and you get more comfortable in yourself, I think I shed a lot of that.
I think you shed a ton of it. And I mean, right down to feeling that victim mentality, like in high school, like going through that phase, going through the stuff with the doctor uncle, like telling you, hey, you should be in the market. But even the way your mom rejected when it came to the school with the money with Rutgers, like your mom just signaling to you what actually matters is like, you go to the right place, you go to this thing, and we're going to figure this out.
She has no shame, by the way. Like, this is like, my mom is clearly a classic. Like
I want to know your mom now. This is nuts.
Yeah. She just has no shame. And she is, she's a very, very good person. You can have, the thing is, like, no shame is an interesting thing, because like, it can be amplified in weird ways. If you're like a really horrible person and you have no shame, you're really dangerous.
There's sociopathic stuff inside.
Right.
But if you Joker, right?
Totally. That's like Joker stuff. But if you're a really good person and you have no shame, there's something very magical about that. At the end of the day, it's like, she could be rough around the edges, but people really do feel like she cares, and she has a very large capacity to, like, be understanding and supportive and all that, even though she can be, like I said, she's a little bit more rough around the edges, but like, she's a total trooper. I got so much from her. It's ridiculous, really.
Well, so from the cousin to the friend, obviously your mom, they're all along the way, and then into college where you're the head TA, and just, again, it's this crazy subtle status boost of this teacher who's like, fill 15 minutes twice a week. Like, you're on stage, just figure it out. And even if it wasn't like intentional in any way, aside from what's an opportunity I can give this kid to sink or swim with.
Yeah.
And like, let's see what happens. And then like, look what that did for you. Like, yes, the imposter bullshit, but also like, that's part of the propulsion, it feels like, coming out of this.
Yeah. Oh, I think obviously, like, you need to have a little bit of a spark, right? You need to have some kind of activation energy there. And if it's like a little false confidence is totally fine. It's good. You need it.
It's essential.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
it actually
essential.
happens.
You're a musician. you can't get on stage without some false confidence. You need a little bit.
No. Well, there's no high wire act, right? Like if there's the net, there's no high wire act. So you got to figure out what the thing is that makes you realize, oh crap, this is actually a high wire act.
Yeah.
And that tension pushes everything forward. That's
Right.
There's magic in that. And likewise, I'm jumping ahead in the story a little bit now, but the guy who was the backer, the one you said was the artist, this guy, like another one where it's like he figured out his thing, he made his way, and then he was looking out. Like this guy literally put his neck out a bit to back you
totally.
on this, right?
Yeah, totally. He really did.
And I think that leans all the way towards like your willingness in the later stages to go through like all those different pits. I know we kind of like fast forwarded through that story.
Yeah.
But 2008 till when you go through how many pits you must have touched?
Oh, so I think I've only met. So I have been I had a membership on the American Stock Exchange, the New York Stock Exchange, the COMEX, the NYMEX, the ICE, which was formerly the NYBOT. The only exchange in New York I never had a membership on was the NYFE, the New York Futures Exchange. Otherwise, I have done a tour of duty on everywhere in New York City. And there's just not that many people in the world that have actually done that. So yeah, I was pretty freaking comfortable with like going into like a hostile environment. And by the way, which is not, I should say this, being disagreeable is a good trader quality. You're like, I think being reflexive contrarian that can lead you into utter stupidity, but you do have to have something in trading that makes you naturally disagreeable, where you're just kind of like, I don't know if that's how that works, actually. I must have that in that trading domain. However, I'm like, 98th percentile agreeable on a big five test. I am, I am a total pleaser. I have a lot of properties that if you were to build a trader from scratch, you would not allocate skill points on that up to that, right? But so I don't actually think I was like born to do this in any way. I always say like SIG, I credit SIG because like their belief is like, on the Mortimer versus the other guy's bet in Trading Places of like the trader, SIG is like traders are made, not born. Granted, it's a little disingenuous maybe because like they'll say it. There's like a certain amount of like natural aptitude that you kind of need, but like they're kind of like if you have a person with like certain set of properties, you could probably turn them into a trader. And I think that you wouldn't be necessarily an agreeable person. I'm agreeable to a fault, like to the point where I have to be aware of it. But ultimately, it probably did like in some ways serve me pretty well because I could go into these environments and I think if you spent enough time around me, you would probably have a hard time maybe you'd have a hard time hating me if you spent enough time being around me. So like it was that exterior wall where you're trying to like box me out. Maybe that wears down after a while for whatever reasons that I have for being like, whatever it is about me that makes me like that is probably something that has served me well.
I'd say so, Kris. I would definitely say so. People want to connect with you. They want to bug you on the internet. Where's the best places to find you out there in the world?
Just go to the Substack. It's moontower.substack.
Make sure you follow along, see all those things. I'm going to channel your mom, not just because I'm sure she would tell you you're truly an intentional investor, but because I want to say you are loved and don't ever, ever care what those other people think. Thanks so much for the time today, Kris.
It was a pleasure, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe wherever you're watching The Intentional Investor so more people can find our show. You can follow Matt directly at cultishcreative.com or at cultishcreative on Twitter. For more great content at the intersection of investing and life, check out epsilontheory.com or at epsilontheory on Twitter.